When you're cooking, how do you make your dishes flavorful? Hello, my dear friends. Raisa here from the Nutrinut. For those of you who do not know me, I am a nutritionist and founder of the Nutrinut, which is a coaching practice that basically dedicates to teaching you how to eat in a way that's good for the body, for the mind, for the soul, and for the planet, because we cannot talk about healthy eating without also talking about sustainability. So, a few little updates for you guys. I took up knitting. I figured I really needed a hobby that had nothing to do with being in the kitchen with nutrition because I really needed to unplug a little bit. My grandma, when she visited a while back in my house, she taught me how to knit and how to crochet, but obviously, since I hadn't done it in such a long time, I forgot. But I had all the needles, I had everything at home already, so I'm like, why not? And honestly, the school of YouTube taught me how to start knitting again. And now I have this sweater. No, I'm kidding. This is, well, stack. This is what I have done so far. I don't have enough to do a headband, which was the original plan, but I think it looks pretty cool. It looks nice. I mean, not a lot of holes. I'm happy about this. And now let's jump into it. So for today's video, I wanted to share with you my main tips on how to make your dishes when you're cooking flavorful and that you actually enjoy it, because I know that one of the scariest things of starting to cook from scratch is actually making things taste good. It can be very intimidating if you think about it, all the different spices that are out there, all the different ways to prepare food. So I want to break down for you one of my main tips, or some of my main tips, on what I do so you can play around with the flavors and you can make sure that you're happy with the end product. So first thing is first, you have to make sure that you try the food, right? That sounds a little bit like duh. But what this means is you want to make sure that you're trying the food throughout the whole process and not just wait until when it's on your plate and it's kind of like there's not much you can do about it to actually try to fix something that you don't like, right? So from the beginning of the process, as soon as you put that olive oil in the pan and you put your garlic, you can already start throwing in some spices and start your seasoning from the beginning instead of waiting until the end. That's number one. And as you go adding things into, tweaking here and there, go trying it and see, okay, like the flavor is not really, that great for me yet. What else is missing? What we have to understand is that seasoning is not only spices, it's not only salt. There's so much that goes into it, right? And that actually leads me perfectly into tip number 2, which is when you're making something, when you want to tweak the flavor of something, forget about the salt. I mean, the salt is really important to kind of bring everything together, but what's actually going to give you all of that flavor, all of those interesting sensations in your tongue, it's actually going to be coming from the spices and from other little things that you can add to your dishes, right? So when it comes to spices, you have 2 different options, right? You can use either dried spices, which this is a little oregano that I had, so I can just show you, have some props for you guys. You can also go with fresh. Now this is a basil leaf. It smells amazing. You've probably tried it if you've had, they typically put that on top of pizza. You can get a really strong flavor of basil also in pesto, right? But it's completely different from the actual dry thing, and I really encourage you guys to, if you haven't seen it yet, if you haven't really experimented with the actual fresh herbs, test it out. And actually basil is a pretty good one to begin with, because it just goes so well with everything, and it has like this really fresh smell that I love so much. So remember, think outside the box whenever you're seasoning. Think, far further than just the typical salt and pepper, right? Go into your cabinet and see all the spices, and you can start with, the powder stuff that you probably already have lying around. I think most of us will have like your basics, garlic powder. You can have Sometimes people have onion powder as well. You can have oregano, you can have basil. So go back there, explore, see what you have. And honestly, I'm gonna tell you this, it's very rare that you're gonna mess up a dish because of spices, unless you really throw the whole bottle, because you have to remember that some spices are actually quite potent. But if you start with like a little bit, a teaspoon of this, you stir it. Going back to tip number one, tasting it, see if you like the flavor. If you could use a little bit more, a little bit, or something different, right, that will combine and complement it. That's the beauty of cooking, different than baking. Baking is a little bit more of like exact science that you have to measure everything, or things can really, end up in catastrophe in your kitchen. But cooking is different, and you have a lot of opportunities along the way to actually tweak your flavor and to transform things if you're not really happy with how things are, progressing. Other than the spices, I want you to actually think above and beyond again. I asked you to do that for the salt and pepper, and now I'm asking you to do it also with the spices, because it's not limited to only spices, right? There are a few little components and little neat tricks that a lot of chefs will use, and I'm not saying in any way that I am a chef, but it actually really, really works. Is actually playing with the acidity and also the texture, right? So lemons and limes are really great to enhance flavor. You have to remember that it's not only salty and sweet, but you also have the ability to taste feel the acidity and the tartness of things. So playing with the acidity of dishes by squeezing a little lemon and lime will go a very long way. It can open up flavors that you never even thought were possible. I like putting it more towards the end of the process first, because the vitamin C that you'll get from the lemon, the lime that you squeeze in there, it actually tends to be heat sensitive, right? So you don't want to be cooking it too much. And I feel that the flavor will stay a little bit longer and stronger towards the end, right? But there are some dishes, let's say like fish, that you might want to do a marinade or something with it. So the other thing I really enjoy doing is drizzling. This is extra virgin olive oil that I have. So as soon as I'm done cooking, you can drizzle that in the dish, and it's gonna help not only with the consistency of your meal, but also the flavor. I do cook with olive oil when I'm cooking my garlic and my onions in the beginning of the process, but I like to drizzle it in the end when I'm done cooking and I turn off the stove, just so you can retain a lot of those nutrients that have in the extra virgin olive oil. And last but not least, this actually falls under the spices, but I love garlic so freaking much that it's gonna get a tip number of its own, right? I truly believe that there's no such thing as too much garlic and onion when you're cooking. Honestly, I start every single dish already with garlic and onion. That's seriously my basic, and I don't care what it is, I'm going to go and use it. And for me, nothing is better than that smell of garlic, being like roasting a little bit in the olive oil. It's really the best thing in the world. So I go through these a lot. There are many benefits to using garlic, not only in terms of flavor, but also in terms of for our bodies, right? It has very big immune boosting properties, antibacterial, all of that good stuff. So it's something that's really great to use. Now, a few things with garlic, right? For you to actually get the most benefits out of it, it's better to enjoy it raw. However, there are a couple of things, right? You get that garlic breath that honestly nobody enjoys. And the second thing is, if you tend to get bloated, or if food tends to give you a little bit extra gas, let's put it that way, having raw garlic is actually going to contribute to that by a lot. So for me personally, I do enjoy to cook it a little bit better. For you to retain more of the nutrients, it is better to add it towards the end of the cooking process, so you get rid of all those kind of little side effects that you can get from having the garlic raw, but you retain some of the nutrition. Me personally, I do enjoy so much that smell that I tend to put it in the beginning of the cooking process, so it's more from a taste bud perspective as opposed to a nutritionist. But there goes the tip for me. Either way, honestly, it's going to be great for your body. It's going to add so much flavor. And like I said, always remember to go tasting your food as you go, right? As soon as you start adding those ingredients, you go and try it a little bit. With a little side note, guys, yes, please do not try any like raw chicken or raw eggs or things like that you know is gonna, not be that great for you. But I mean, like sauces and things that are not really an issue for you to be trying raw, right? So those are my main tips for you. I want you guys to go and have fun and explore in the kitchen. Yes, you're gonna make mistakes. Yes, there are gonna be dishes that are not gonna be that great, but you're gonna be learning every time that you go there and you cook. It's gonna be a new experience. You're gonna learn different combinations, what works with what. Remember, nobody was born a chef, right? This is all from experience. People, as they tested different things, that's how you discover what you like. And you'll never know until you try. So go back to your kitchens. Let's get cooking.